The Buffalo Bills select DeWayne Carter, defensive tackle, Duke.
We want to welcome Duke defensive tackle DeWayne Carter to the Buffalo Bills. The Bills go back-to-back defensive picks with their second and third round selections. Welcome into our instant draft reaction alongside of Chris Brown. I'm Maddy Glab, and what you're getting in DeWayne Carter is a guy who's 6'2", 302 pounds. Carter was a team captain the last 3 seasons. He's got high character. He plays with a lot of energy. He's someone who's not going to give up on a play. He uses his hands as weapons to bat balls down and collapse the pocket. He's an aggressive, smart player. He had 12 sacks and 7 forced fumbles in his collegiate career. He started in every game over the last 3 seasons. So, Chris, how will Carter improve Buffalo's defensive line room?
Yeah, high motor player. You're never going to wonder what you're going to get out of DeWayne Carter every Sunday when he steps on the field. This guy goes from start to finish in every game, snap 1 to snap 80. Whether the team's up by 50 points, down by 50 points, he plays the same way every single week. I think what was interesting was he was used at nose tackle all the way out to 5 technique at Duke. Now, I don't think that's the case in the pros. I think he's a 3 technique under tackle player. He'll probably compete to be Ed Oliver's backup. But good burst off the line, keeps his feet moving throughout the play. He rarely stalls out. You see some defensive tackles, they engage, and they either stop moving their feet or their momentum stops altogether. This guy just keeps churning, and gets a nice push. He's at his best, I think, when he comes at slants or at angles at the center and the guard. That's when he gets the most push. So I think you want to line him up in such a way where he can get on a shoulder of a guard or a center, and then he can get you the movement and the penetration that you're looking for. He's got the low center of gravity, so I think he's got the power to bull rush. He can drive an offensive lineman into the lap of a quarterback. There's film evidence of that. He times his disengagement, get off the block, make the play. It's good at some times, and other times it's not perfect. Now, it's not because he's got short arms or anything. It's just a timing thing. So I think with good coaching, you can get him to be more consistent in that area. And he had a more productive sophomore and junior season than he did a senior season, but the body of work altogether is good. As you mentioned, he's a team captain. He's also known as a vocal leader. This is a guy that won the Jack Tatum Award as the ACC's top student athlete. Sharp guy, not afraid to lead a huddle, as our viewers are seeing right now. We've got some footage of him doing that, and the dude has gigantic hands, 10 1/4 inches. When he puts his hands on an offensive lineman, he can shake them. If his timing is right, he'll get off and make the play. He's just got to do it on a more consistent basis, down in and down out. That would be the only thing that I would knock on him, and it's a little ticky-tack.
11 passes defensed in his collegiate career. He gets up and he will bat those balls down. 5.5 sacks over his junior season, including 3 forced fumbles. He played in a 4-2-5 defense, so this is similar to what Buffalo plays. Why do you think that's an advantage for a college defensive tackle coming into a system that he's familiar with?
Yeah, because he's only about 6'2.5". He's not tall. So he's got kind of a squatty build, but he's well proportioned. So he's kind of squarely built, but he can motor. Like he can. I've seen him on tape at the line of scrimmage. There's a bubble screen out to the sideline, and he's hustling his rear end, and he's making a play outside the numbers. Like there's not many 302-pounders that are doing that on a down-in, down-out basis, but I think it just speaks to the kind of high motor hustle type player that he is. Overachiever type. Like, think that way. That's the kind of guy he is.
And when we're thinking about these things and talking about what he adds to this defense, whether it's his character or his play, this all fits into what Buffalo's looking for to add to their DNA, to add to their culture. He's a high character guy. He was a team captain the last 3 seasons. This is somebody who will walk into the locker room and be around players who are similar to him in a lot of different ways.
I think the shortest way to describe him: smart, strong, active. Those are 3 ways to describe him in 3 words, because he's going to pick up the system quickly. He's strong. I mean, he had 24 reps at his pro day on the bench press, and he is an active player, as I was just saying, sideline to sideline. Like, he will run down a play and fly to the ball. Like, sometimes those big uglies up front, they're like, that dude's 15 yards away. I'm not going to get there. This guy's running there. Whether he thinks he can get there or not, he's running there. So for me, I think what the Bills see there is a player that is going to be rotational. He's going to come on the field with that second wave of the defensive line that comes on the field. And maybe when they need it, maybe it's play 8 of the drive and the starting 4 are gassed. This guy comes on and gives you a boost. Like, this is an energy type player who's not going to just be energetic in his own way of play, but he's going to inspire guys around him to play full tilt like every single play, because that's the way he plays all the time.
How does he answer any missing pieces that existed on the defensive line last season?
So I think if you think about some of the rotational players that are not here anymore, Tim Settle, for example, or Jordan Phillips, who signed with the Giants, Poona Ford might be the best comp for a body type. He's a little bit taller than him, but he's squarely built like him, low center of gravity, has some explosiveness in the short area. The difference is this guy can get to the numbers, even get to the sideline, and help you clean up on a play because he's got that kind of athleticism. So I would say similar in body type to Poona Ford, a little bit taller, and I think he's got more sudden explosiveness off the snap, strong hands, and then more range because of his athleticism.
With these traits that we're talking about, the athleticism that Carter has, the ability to go get after the quarterback, the ability to break up a pass with those violent hands, where is the ceiling for a player like Carter?
Yeah, I mean, with Ed Oliver here long term, I don't know that he's ever going to rise to the level of starter, but I think this is a guy you can rely on to give you 35 to 40 snaps a week. And like I said at the beginning, you're never going to go into a game wondering, what am I going to get from DeWayne Carter? Because his mindset and his intestinal fortitude, it's unacceptable for him not to give you his best on every single snap. So coaches are not going to wonder. Like, new defensive coordinator Bobby Babich, he knows he's going to be able to rotate this kid in, and he knows exactly what he's going to get from him every single week.
If we look at the defensive line room as a whole, do you believe this room is set now with the addition of DeWayne Carter? The Bills added to the defensive line room through free agency. Where do you believe they're at?
Yeah, I mean, I think they're in a good spot here because they've got some depth at edge. You know, Casey Toohill was signed, A.J. Epinesa was re-signed, and then you have Von Miller and Greg Rousseau in front of them. So you've got 4 solid ones there, and then Kingsley Jonathan is your 5th right now. And then at defensive tackle, you think about the players they signed, Deshaun Williams at defensive tackle, along with Austin Johnson. Johnson. Those are 4 right there. So DeWayne Carter is a rookie that's going to be learning and having to learn fast if he wants to get on the field. I believe, if I remember right, they carried 10 defensive linemen last season. They would typically dress 8, sometimes 9, because Kingsley Jonathan played on special teams. So that's how he got dressed. So your depth might be good at defensive line right now, and maybe you'll look at the next level, linebacker or perhaps corner, if you want to add depth pieces on the defensive front or the defensive side of the ball. So that might be where they go next, because you have your depth at safety now with Cole Bishop, you have your depth at defensive tackle and DeWayne Carter, and you have 5 defensive ends. So where you go here, maybe you go back to receiver tomorrow at round 4. If you like something that's still on the board. And then from there, you're looking at offensive line depth. You may want to get a running back late to be your 3rd running back. And then corner depth and linebacker depth. That's really what you're looking at this point. They're in good shape.
If the Bills decide to dip back into the receiver pool, with what's available right now, Chris, are there any names that you believe could fit into Buffalo's system? Troy Franklin is still available. Devontae Walker is still available. Javon Baker is still available.
Yeah, I mean, there's some good value at receiver right now. I don't think there's any question about that. I want to pull up the best on the board that I have here for receiver, just to see if there's any other names that you didn't mention that I like.
Brendan Rice, I'm
Yeah,
seeing
Rice.
Malik Washington, Johnny Wilson.
Right. So Wilson, gigantic player. I would tend to think that Tez Walker would, like I said earlier, after the Bills took Keon Coleman, and then made the safety pick, and you asked me what else could they get. I said, if they want to add a receiver, they need a field stretcher. Troy Franklin is a field stretcher. Fast guy, ran a 4.41. Tez Walker is a field stretcher. Good straight line speed, ran a 4.36. Those are your best field stretchers left on the board right now. Unfortunately, I don't think they're going to last very long. So Brandon Beane could be plotting, if he wants one of those two field stretchers, he could be plotting to move up into the top of round 4 tomorrow. He's sitting at 128. That's his next pick. He's got 4 5s. He has the ammunition to go up and get that field stretcher if he wants one. So we'll have to see. He's going to mull that over probably tonight and kind of assess things once round 3 is complete and basically say to himself, what do I want to sacrifice to get to the top of the board if I think someone's worth going up there to get?
The Bills have 7 picks in day 3, so they have the ability to move around a little bit if they want to. They have those 4 fifth-round picks. It'll be interesting to see if they stick with all of those fifth-round picks. That's a big number to have in any round of the NFL draft. Do you believe we'll be looking back at tomorrow after it's all done and thinking that they have 7 selections, or do you think Brandon Beane does some movement on day 3?
I think there will be some movement tomorrow. I think he's going to jump up and grab people that he feels are sliding because now, unlike the first 2 days of the draft, he has ammunition to work with now, and it's in this draft. He doesn't have to give up future picks. He has an enormous amount of capital in the 5th round with 4 selections there, all pretty tightly packed in a span of 19 picks between 144 and 163. That's capital that could help him tomorrow in round 4. So if he felt, we were talking about this yesterday, Maddie, based on the actions that he made, it was clear to us that he felt the best value in the draft was in rounds 2 and 3. He's made 3 selections. He's helped his football club. Now, where is the value on day 3? Is it jam-packed into round 4, or does it stretch into round 5? If he thinks it stretches into round 5, maybe there's less movement. If he thinks people are going to start flying off the board in round 4 that we really like, and what's after that is a steep drop-off, I could see him using 2 of those 5s to maybe get back into round 4 and make 2 picks in that round instead of just 1.
Where do you believe the roster is at right now? We talked about the depth positions that the Bills may want to fill, knowing that the needs have been met with drafting Keon Coleman, the wide receiver out of Florida State. You go Cole Bishop next, a safety who will be a depth piece in the safety room. And then DeWayne Carter will also be that in the defensive line room. Where else on this roster could you see the Bills adding to depth-wise?
I think corner makes sense for depth because while you do have Taron Johnson as your rock-solid slot, I don't know that you necessarily have somebody that could – well, you have Cam Lewis, so I guess he's your backup there. But on the outside, you have Benford, Douglas, and Elam. I think you need a 4th out there for depth purposes, so I could see that being an addition to the roster. Linebacker, as we mentioned, you only have 4 from last year's squad. I think you need depth there, not only from a defense perspective, but from a special teams perspective. Tyler Matakevich is out the door. A.J. Klein is retired again. And you lost Tyrell Dotson to Seattle in free agency. So you've got to add there, I believe. And then offensive line depth, I think, is something that you need now. At the guard center position, I think you kind of shored up tackle pretty effectively, because you have Ryan Vandermark as a backup, and you also have Lyle Collins, who they signed late in free agency as a veteran backup, who could also play some guard. So maybe you get a guard center backup here, someone that can work in the pivot behind Connor McGovern and can also play guard for you. That would make sense to me.
If you look back at the picks tonight, from Keon Coleman to Cole Bishop to DeWayne Carter, what do these moves say about Brandon Beane?
I don't know that they say anything per se. I think he went for size at the safety position, because Cole Bishop was one of the bigger safeties in this class who also blended that well. He was probably the best combination of size and athleticism for the safety position. So it was clear that, again, he leaned toward physical traits, much like he did with Keon Coleman, his first pick in round 2. Here in round 3, he kind of went more towards because DeWayne Carter does not have elite measurables, but I think he's a representation of how the defensive tackle class dropped off after round 2. Once you got to round 3, you're not getting elite measurables anymore at the defensive tackle position. There was a drop-off there that was readily apparent. And so what do you choose next if you can't get elite measurables? You go for either production, body of work, which DeWayne Carter has, or you go for overachiever types, guys that exceed their physical limitations. DeWayne Carter is that, personified. And so that's the way they went there at defensive tackle, in my estimation.
Should we check in with the rest of the AFC East, talk about what some other teams have done? Well,
we saw the Jets moving around a little bit today.
The Jets moved around a little bit today. The Dolphins, they start out night 1 by drafting Chop Robinson, an edge rusher, and then they go get Patrick Paul, an offensive tackle out of Houston. The Dolphins don't have another pick until round 5, so they'll be waiting tomorrow a little bit. What do you think about the Dolphins' additions? Edge rusher, obviously a need for that team after Christian Wilkins is not back on that roster.
Yeah, and more importantly, they have their 2 starting defensive ends coming off season-ending injuries. You know, Bradley Chubb, ACL, Jalen Phillips, Achilles. Those are long-term injuries. You don't know what either of those guys are going to look like in training camp. You had to get somebody on the edge, and Robinson was the last guy probably with a first-round grade. So they had to go there at pick 21. I wasn't the biggest fan of Chop Robinson. I think he's kind of a one-trick pony. It's a great trick. He is super fast off the edge. But I think offensive tackles in this league, if that's all you have, they're good enough to adjust to that, knowing that's all you've got in your bag. So maybe in time he diversifies his game, but they didn't really have a choice. He was the last guy on the board worthy of a first-round grade at the edge. Like a speed rusher I'm talking about, like Darius Robinson, totally different player. So I understand why they made that pick. Patrick Paul, same thing. They needed offensive tackle help. Teron Armstead, this is probably his last year in the league, so they need somebody in the pipeline. And Armstead is dragging himself on the field every week. He's probably not going to play 17 games. You need an answer there that's better than what they've had. So the picks made sense.
The Jets and the Patriots dip into the wide receiver pool on night 2. The Patriots go get Jalen Polk, and the Jets go get Malachi Corley in the 3rd round, at the top of the 3rd round. So we see some other AFC East teams also adding to their wide receiver rooms.
Yeah, I think the Patriots' pick of Jalen Polk is very telling of the kind of coach we expect Gerard Mayo to be. Tough, gritty, former linebacker. It's not a surprise to me that Jalen Polk's game appealed to him. I think he's one of the toughest receivers in the entire draft class. So seeing him go to the Patriots made a ton of sense to me. And, you know, let's not forget, they have a rookie quarterback in Drake May. You got to get him some weapons. And I think Polk is a guy that quarterbacks who don't know him will fall in love with. He works for his quarterback. He'll lay out for a ball and take a hit. He'll block in the run game. So there are things to Polk's game that I think cater very nicely to what Gerard Mayo and Elliott Wolf are trying to build in New England, because they're building it from the studs. I mean, they stripped it to the studs. They got to rebuild it.
Let's move back to the Buffalo Bills and hear from the guy with a high motor, DeWayne Carter, meeting with the media right now.
At the combine, I always walk away and get to the moments myself. So I was sitting in the bleachers before we did the combine. And Coach West kind of walked up behind me. We just had this small talk, but, you know, I don't know, it was weird. It's like a weird interaction. It kind of meant something to me. And then now we're here, and I'll be lying if I said I wasn't sitting there like, all right, man, this day's almost kind of over. Like, maybe they don't like me like I thought they did. Who knows?
Hey, listen, I mean, the noise in the background is because your family's obviously proud of you and you're enjoying the moment with them. I know your dad played at Ohio State. I think I watched him play. I was at Syracuse in the 90s when he played, and they came up there
Really?
for a game. Yeah. So just tell us a little bit about your football family background with your dad, especially, and your family.
Yeah, so you talk about generations. Starts with my dad's father, Raymond Carter Sr. He's actually in the Hall of Fame at Youngstown State, 8 letters in football and track. Then you go to Raymond Carter Jr., my oldest uncle. He's running back in Notre Dame. And then the middle brother, my Uncle John. Uncle Johnny played offensive line at West Kentucky. And then my dad obviously at Ohio State, man. So, I mean, just from the genes, like my pedigree, I kind of hit the lottery. I got lucky on that one.
You got it, man. Congratulations. Welcome to Buffalo.
Thank you so much.
DeWayne Carter, Mookie Hawkins, Buffalo Sports 1080. How you doing?
I'm ecstatic, man. How are you?
I'm good, man. But listen, you cannot call delay a game on the family on a big night like this. Okay, you just can't do that. All right, you gotta let them rock out. All right, you gotta let them rock out. All right.
You see, it didn't work.
No, it didn't work. It didn't work. But just talk about what does it mean for you to be playing close to home and being a Buffalo Bill?
Yeah, so I mean, honestly, like beggars can't be choosers right in this. So obviously, I want to be somewhere regionally with a reasonable flight. And I couldn't ask for anything better, especially this great organization I'm not a part of. This great team I'm not a part of, this great coaching staff, and everybody I've met since we all started this program has been A1. I mean, it's just so cool to see how it works out. So, I mean, I don't know, man. I'm so excited.
Yes, man, and those leadership qualities, they carry you. They carry you quite well. And the Bills just lost 6 captains. So just care to talk about your leadership qualities and where do you attribute that from?
Yeah, so I mean, it always started with me wanting to learn. I was an education minor, and I actually want to teach and kind of stems from my parents and their background a little bit as well. But I'm always about learning, and I feel like as a learner, you got to be a really good listener, right? And that's something I learned at a young age. And so my leadership style always starts there. Like, I mean, day one, I'm going to come in there trying to listen and learn and talk to all the vets and all the guys who really been through everything, right? And then I always describe my leadership style as not a one-size-fits-all. Because at the end of the day, if you don't really know your teammates or the people you're working with, I mean, how can you possibly be a leader? If you don't know what one person requires, whether it's, maybe you need, raise your voice, different conversations, obviously. College is a lot different than pros, and I'll be working with grown men now. But so we'll see how it goes. But I'm going to take that same approach.
Absolutely, man. Congratulations, and I'll see you tomorrow.
Thank you so much. See you then.
Hey, Dwayne, Catherine Fitzgerald from the Buffalo News. Congratulations.
Thank you so much.
Kind of following up on Mookie's question, but just being a 3-time captain at Duke, what did you learn from that? What were some of your takeaways of, that experience?
Yeah, I mean, so we went through a lot at Duke. It was a real roller coaster ride. And, when I came in, NIL was basically hot off the press. And as a kid who was having success, right, I have all these, the temptations, the offer to leave for money, quote unquote, bigger opportunities, everything else. And I decided to stay. And I think it's just a tribute to our locker room and how close we all are and what loyalty and everything really means to us in that program. So we talk about life lessons and perseverance and loyalty and working hard work and really building something from the ground up is what we did these last 2 years. And I can't be more proud to tell that story every time I get a chance to.
That's awesome. And can you tell us a little bit just about your style of play too? Like, what do you think of your skill set stood out to the Bills?
Yeah, I think if I describe myself, high effort, high motor, high IQ, heavy hands, and I'm physical. And, some people call me nasty, violent, stuff like that. I just love the game of football. And I think it just means a lot to me. And I think it really shows when you turn on my tape. So, I just can't wait to get to work because I know the Bills get off the ball, and I can't wait.
Awesome. Thanks, and congrats again.
Thank you.
Hey, Dwayne, Alex Braski, Batavia Daily News. I was going to ask you about your style, so I'll just ask you, what do you know about the Bills, their fan base, the city, so on and so forth?
Hey, you talk about Bills Mafia, right? I mean, there's really nobody better. There's really nobody better. Every year, the Bills been contenders. And then that's obviously when you see the fan base really shows out the most, but it's consistent. Especially when you have a great team, great organization. So, I can't wait to play in that stadium. I love hometown crowds that really take pride in their fan base, and and that's with the good and the bad. That's all what comes with it. So that means you have a passionate fan base who cares. So man, I just can't wait.
Thanks. Good luck.
Thank you.
Hey, Dwayne. John Warren with the Associated Press.
How you
Dwayne,
doing?
can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
I wasn't going to ask a question, but then when you actually popped out, left the room to tell everybody to kind of quiet down, kind of shows that shows a bit of your leadership ability, shows you're not afraid of things. And at 23, the maturity that you have, how much do you think you're more prepared entering the NFL as a 23-year-old than you would be maybe a year ago or 2 years ago?
Yeah, 100%. So that's a great question. I kind of touched on it a little bit earlier. I Duke went through a lot, and I had to grow up as a leader, especially on a team that was really young at the time when I first became captain, and we didn't really have any leadership in any direction. So it was kind of on me. At least I took it upon myself to really, step up and be in that role, as well as my teammates looked to me that way as well. But I'd be remiss if I didn't mention my parents and my upbringing. You talk about like me being away, step away, and say something to my people out there. But at the end of the day, my dad always told me, he said, a closed mouth doesn't get fed. So you can't be afraid to open your mouth and say what you need and say what you need done. So that's really where it comes from, is my upbringing, man.
Good for you, and congratulations. I'll let you get back to your family because this is a big night for you. Congrats.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Hi, Dwayne. Alina Getzenberg, ESPN. Just one last question for you. I think I was just curious, your family's there. You talked about how you knew the Bills were interested and hoping it would work out. What's this day kind of been like for you, waiting and now to have this moment and know that you are going to be a Buffalo? Like, what are the feelings like? Like, how has today been?
Yeah, so it started off very high energy, right? And as the day went on, we got the 90s. I'm like, oh, man. I said, I'm going to have to wake up tomorrow and turn on the draft. I was, you get a little bit down in the dumps, right? And I kept looking at Buffalo. I'm like, I said, they're going to come get me. They're going to come get me. They're going to come get me. And I kind of leaned back on the couch, and I just felt the couch vibrate. And I was like, I think my exact words were, oh, my God. Like, it's really happening. And, I have a great support system around me, my intermediate family, as well as my community. I think it's just the coolest thing. So everybody's been reaching out. I get messages, keep your head up, like it's coming. I promise it's coming. And, they don't know anything. But at the end of the day, it's just for, me, my mental sanity and fortitude. So I stay strong, and, I really appreciate everything.
Awesome. Congratulations.
Thank you.
All right, that's all the questions we have for today. Dwayne, thank you once again, and congratulations.
Yes, sir. Thank you. I appreciate you guys.
That was defensive tackle DeWayne Carter, the newest member of the Buffalo Bills, and I can't help but think how much Bills Mafia is going to love this player. The way that he speaks, his answers, that big smile that he had throughout that press conference. I believe this fan base is going to fall in love with this guy.
It's that Duke education, man. The guy's quick as a whip. He was up for the academic Heisman, the William Campbell Trophy. This guy is bringing not just a high football IQ, just general intelligence is probably off the charts. It's not easy getting into Duke. I don't care if you're a good athlete or not. You got to have like almost a 1,600 on your SATs to have a shot to get into that school. So they got a sharp tack coming in here for sure. And I think he's going to take to the system pretty quickly. The thing that fascinates me all the time is how the Bills initiate interactions with these players in the pre-draft process. This was not a player that was in a formal interview setting at the Combine. I can't speak to whether or not they sat him down at the Senior Bowl, but he referenced the interaction that he had with defensive line coach Marcus West. He said, all of a sudden, I'm sitting there watching some of my teammates work out at the Combine. I'm there trying to support them. I'm sitting in the stands, and all of a sudden there's a tap on my shoulder, and it's Coach West who just strikes up a conversation with me. And that is how NFL clubs get to know the wide volume of players, because you only get 60 interviews at the Combine. You only get 30 pre-draft visits, and you got to canvas the pool of players that numbers 350. And that's one of the ways you do that. You see an opportunity for a 2 to 3 minute conversation, and you jump on it. especially if you're a guy that could potentially be coaching this guy on Sundays or during the week. And that's what Coach West did. He saw an opportunity. This kid's sitting in the stands. He's just watching his teammates. He's probably not going to mind talking to me for 5 or 10 minutes. And bang, now you've got an impression of the kid that maybe 20 other teams didn't have an opportunity at. And now you're better equipped to make a decision like, this kid will work in our system. This kid's personality and character will fit right in with Bill's DNA. And it helps, that kind of information helps you feel better about the decision to make him the 95th pick overall for Buffalo.
Character matters a lot in the NFL draft. Character matters when you're introducing new players to your team. If you have guys on your draft board who have the same measurables, who have similar statistics, who project in the similar way at the next level, but one has higher character than the other, you got to believe they're drafting the guy with higher character. And this seems like a guy who has unbelievable character with the way that he carries himself, the academic all-ACC honors. He seems like he's going to be a great fit in this culture.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And just kind of taking a look at the night, 3 picks, I think we kind of got a sense after they got the receiver early that they were going to focus on defense. They proved to do that. And I think the GM is ready to kind of comment on the night that was for the Bills with these 3 selections here at 33, 60, and 95, right?
Let's go right over to Brandon Beane. He's addressing the media right now.
On Cole Bishop, what do you like about his versatility?
Yeah, that's probably where I'd start, Ryan, is, we like, in a perfect world, you like your safeties in this system to be interchangeable. We all know what, Mike and Jordan brought here for so long is, it's not the traditional box safety, deep half safety. Not that you can't do that, but just to be able to do more packages and disguise, you like the guys who have the strength and physicality to play down here in the core, blitz, the different ways you guys have seen over the years following this team, but also go in the back half and take the ball away. And Cole, I would say, fits it to a T. Good blitzer, super smart. Didn't have a great amount of ball production, but we think in our system he's got ball skills. You see him make plays. We think that'll improve. Really good blitzer and just an instinctive football player.
He mentioned that he has good coverage on tight ends. How important was that?
Yeah, it's funny. I interviewed, we at the Senior Bowl was the first time we met him. And so naturally you're asking him his relationship with Dalton and things like that. And I said, how bad did Dalton abuse you in practice? And he said, no, I got the better of him. And I said, well, we'll ask Dalton. And so I texted Dalton about him, and he was just raving about him. And I think Dalton called me right after that or FaceTimed me when I was at the Senior Bowl, and he was just like, this kid, he's not lying. He got me more than I got him. And so I was like, all right, that's pretty honorable that you said that. I thought he was just trying to pump himself up. But, he really impressed us throughout the process. His knowledge of the game, his smarts, everyone at Utah raves about him. And he's one of those players where, sometimes when you're going through this process, coaches see players like this, scouts, we see it like this. You're trying to make sure you're on the same page. What do you see? What do we see? Probably one of the most consensus players on our board. Everyone saw exactly the same thing. Easy to put him on our board. And, it was one of those ones. I got lucky nobody took my call. We were trying to move up to get him a little earlier. And, it was almost like Cybo last year. We were inching to try to get up. Not crazy far, but the single digits away, and couldn't get any takers.
How much of a special teams role can he play as well if he's not playing defense right away?
Yeah, I mean, you're talking about a guy who ran in the 4.4s, mid, 4.43, 4.44, something like that. He's got the toughs and do that. They didn't always have him do that, but he's got the DNA, the makeup. So yes, he'll have a role there.
Did Kincaid text you his name in the second round?
No, you know what? He didn't until we did, but I did text Dalton. No, and Dalton has asked me since he's been back multiple times, and I found out after we took him that he's asked other people about him to put a good word in for him. But as you guys have already met him, he he almost feels like another Dalton Kincaid, the personality, and just yes sir, no sir, loves ball. He's just going to come in, not say anything. He's just going to play.
There was a clip that went out from the team that showed your reaction right after the pick, kind of like the Patton and fist pound or whatever you did there.
Yeah.
Did you feel? Sorry, it's late. Did you feel like this was a position and this was a guy at this spot that needed to happen?
It's more just following the board. Could have been a different position, but yeah, obviously Jordan and Micah's, they're not currently here, and we'll see what Mike ends up doing. But to add a guy that fits our defense the way he does and where we had him on the board, you just when you set your board and it starts falling and you see pieces around it falling, when you get 10, 9, 8 picks away and we got multiple people calling to try and move up just to secure him. Like I would have been thrilled giving up, something in the draft, 4th, 5th round to go get him. And, sometimes people take it, sometimes people want to stay and take their pick. And so everyone we were talking to wanted to stay and pick. So then you're just waiting it out. And so that was the excitement, like, wow, we waited and got him, and now we still got all our ammo.
Brandon, every year you tell us that you're following your board, and I believe you. I'm not telling that.
Think I'm a liar, John?
No. But every year you seem to come out with addressing the needs that you need to address.
Yeah.
Today, be it receiver, safety, and getting depth at defensive tackle. What's the secret? I mean, I'm not saying you're a liar, but you certainly do come out with the pieces that you need.
Yeah, I mean. And that's part of like what as I told you, let's go to last night. We had receivers on the board and we had some guys on defense on the board that were similar value. We do know the need is wide receiver. If the wide receivers were cleaned out, then we would have just took one of those defensive players. But that was the reason we moved back. We have similar players here. We think we can get some more ammo trying to get back in the third, and what we ended up doing with Carolina to go back one more pick made sense. We were going to still get what we were looking for. So what you're trying to do is you are trying to hit needs when you can, but you're trying to make sure they hit the value on the board. So in the case of Cole, the reason I was trying to trade up was we had a good second-round grade on him, and the board was getting cleaned out of the second round. He was the only player we had left with a second-round grade at that point. So that's why you're counting it down. And, we were trying to, I wanted to still get a player with a second-round value. That's why I started doing that. So I am following my board. I wouldn't have been as antsy. It could have been a different position. It didn't have, if we had some other positions at second round, then it's easier to sit there. Okay, if he goes, well, I still got this defensive end and whatever else. But that's why I got antsy, because I'm going, really, I'm going to be at 2 and probably picking out a 3, or then maybe I trade back and get something else.
It worked out.
Yes, it did. It did. Yeah, it was huge. Well, I wasn't patient. No one took my call, or they took it, but they politely declined. That's what I said upstairs. We struck out and we won because no one did a deal with us.
You've told us before that you'd like to go to bed at night knowing that you were able to pick your guy. This is not meant to be a knock on Keon, but you've probably known all day that he was going to be your guy. So does that make the Cole Bishop one maybe even more gratifying or more exciting for you guys?
I think it was more dramatic just because the countdown, everyone in the room can kind of hear myself, Terrence Gray, Brian Gain making the calls, writing down, them telling me who's interested, me making a call too. So just getting off the phone, comparing what it was. And you're doing that while the picks, so then you hear the picks in, you're looking, and you're like, okay, we can still do it. Because if Cole Bishop goes with 6 picks to go, then you just stop and decide, now are we moving back, or are we going to take someone, early in 3?
We know he had 7 years of Micah and Jordan, and
early on. Kurt Coleman was here when he needed to. Dean Marlowe's coming back. Has come back. You signed Taylor. You signed Mike. What I'm getting to is you've always had veterans there.
Yeah.
You don't play young guys that much at that position. What goes into having to play that position at a young age, at an inexperienced age?
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot mentally. You know, we'll have to get him up to speed. It's probably one of the harder positions, you know, to go in. It's not quarterback level, but when you're talking about middle linebacker and safety, those are probably the two hardest on defense from a mental standpoint. All you got to know, you got to be able to communicate. You got to be confident in what you see. The checks. You're another coach out there. You're talking to the other DBs on what's going on, communicating with the back seven. So, you know, you love the leadership that he's got. You love the intelligence. He's got a lot of the intangibles, the DNA that we look for in all players, and especially at that position. It's one that we almost mandate in this defense to have success, and that's part of the excitement to get a player like this. Yeah, it's kind of cool. He was born on the same day as my son, so I was literally I looked it up, and so it was kind of cool. It is? Wow. Well, October 24th. Well, you're the same age as me. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah. No. Yeah, but it was no, that was kind of cool. But
Before the draft, you said that you and Josh kind of like Josh will talk to you a little bit about maybe some of the receivers that are in this class. Was Keon at all? Did his name come up at all? Like when Josh was talking about some of these receivers?
yeah, yeah. Josh liked a lot of them, and Keon he definitely had an affinity for. Saw the size, the basketball ability. Mentioned, I think he mentioned some of the abilities. He'll be able to adjust it, if I have to throw it behind him, because not every player has that ability. So yeah, I have not talked to Josh tonight. I talked to him earlier today, and he was asking what we were thinking, and I mentioned that he could be a possibility. We're going to see what happens, see if we get an offer we couldn't refuse, but that was where we were leaning.
When you have as much, when Carter plays 52 games in college, how does that help the transition to learning what you need him to do here?
Yeah, I mean, he's one of those guys. He's going to be plug and play in my mind. He's smart. He's going to make everybody around him. He's a tough dude. Leader, 3-year captain, DNA, intangibles. He's going to make the guys around him better, and we'll see where he's at. Sometimes you can find guys that really have that niche inside to call games and things like that. I don't want to say he's got that today, but that's something that he can do. He has the intelligence factor. Obviously, he went to Duke, not North Carolina. And so he's, really excited about what he's going to bring. Just guy plays hard, relentless motor, a lot of the DNA that we look for, in our defensive line, defensive tackle, per se.
He was on the Zoom call, and he actually stood up from the Zoom call, put his Zoom on mute to tell his family to shut up. And he said, my parents have always told me that if I've got something to say, I need to say something. The comfort of, and knowing that he's an adult at 23, how important is that?
Huge, huge. You're always looking for when you can add leaders to positions. And, we talked about Cole and all that, being a young guy. 21. This is a grown. I would say he is mature beyond his years, being around him through the process this spring, and I think that shows. Right there. He politely asked me what took us so long to call him, and he did it in a nice way. So I said we were just waiting on the right moment here.
How do you balance a rotational guy with a third-round pick, right? I mean, he's going to play, but it's not a guy, you say plug and play, but this isn't a guy like, Saibo comes in, he plays every snap.
Yeah.
You can just a second-rounder. Going in, because your system requires guys to rotate. How do you balance that with your board saying, is that too high because he's a rotational guy in our system?
No, because we value line play, and that's just our choice to rotate as much. Some teams rotate less. Some teams, the starters, play more like 65, 70, and 30, 35 for the backups. We rotate them even more. We look at the D line, in a perfect world, we'd love to have 8, 9 starters. That's not realistic from a pay cap standpoint, but it takes more than the O-line. It's just differently. You're coming in waves. You got packages from run packages to rush packages, getting your best guys out there, different quarterbacks, who you want in the game, whether it's a mobile quarterback or a guy that's just going to, play from the pocket. And so you're trying to look for as many versatile pieces up front that you can to give the coaches, different. You run into different teams, how you're going to have to defend them. And some guys, as we know, are better run defenders. Some are better pass rushers. I think he's kind of a tweener. I think he could play both for us. And he'll naturally improve. He's got the DNA, at this level. It'll take some time, but you love what he's going to bring.
Just in general, what did tonight feel like actually being able to select players as opposed to last night and choosing to sit on the sidelines?
Yeah, it felt good. I knew I was, yesterday you never know how it's going to fall, and to make this, it's never easy to trade back when there's players on the board and you don't know how it's going to play out. But I think it helped us add some picks to get value, and so. At the end of the day, we like what we've come away with, and we think tomorrow, what are we sitting with, 7 picks still? So there's some guys on the board. We'll see how it falls, whether we move up or down based on that. But we still feel like there's some good opportunities. And today was fun to get 3 guys. Normally it's your max is probably 2, and as the week started, it was only going to be 1 pick unless we traded back. So, no, it was fun. Excited about tomorrow and see what other pieces we can add.
Going back to Coleman, and Coleman said at the combine that he would be ready to come in and learn right away. How much of that learning do you expect to come from Josh rather than some of the more veteran guys that you have in the room?
Yeah, I think this guy's all ball, and I think Josh knows that we're going to need him to get up to speed. And we're going to be counting on him early in his role. Sometimes you're bringing in rookies and you're just saying, hey, barring injury, you're probably not going to start, help us on special teams or something else like that. In this case, it's no secret we needed to add, a guy like him to fill this X role that's vacant. And so that's part of what you're considering. And we're not going to try to push him too fast, but we're going to press him. And we think we got good guys in the room. Adding a Mac Hollins, his DNA, you guys will be around him. Love what he's brought so far just to the offseason program and what a pro he is. Veterans like that, in the room will help him. Shakir is going in his 3rd year. So I think it'll be Josh for sure, but the other guys around him in that room will all put their arms around him and support him.
Focus on 50-50 balls, contested catches with him. You think back to early Josh Allen's career, pivoting away from maybe players in that category. Do you feel like that he has traits that maybe different traits, not just that maybe separates him from some of the early receivers that you guys had around Josh?
Yeah, we've had kind of different mixes. Yeah, you're right. The one year we were pretty small. With 2019 with Cole and John Brown and that crew. You'd like to always have enough size, enough pieces that have speed, some that have separation quicks. That it's hard to find them all unless you take those guys that you saw go really early last night. And we've talked about it before. You got to lose a lot of games to do that. So I think the strengths that Keon have are his physicality, playing above the rim. Is he a 4-4 guy? No. If he was, he would go in the area that I was just referring to. But he's he can win. He's got really good release package for a college player, kid who's 20. It'll improve. He's going to play tougher corners, so he'll have to improve with it. But I think Josh will work with him and help him. I think the receivers, obviously Adam Henry and Joe Brady and those crew will all put their arms around this kid and say, we all know we need him, and to get him here and get him up to speed mentally and physically.
Picking up for them, just quickly, sorry, this offseason away more than just the offseason program, maybe getting together in that break before training camp?
Yeah, I think Josh is planning to do something like that. So I know he'll make sure Keon's there, and hopefully most all of them can make it. I know it is during their downtime, but I don't know specifically, but I know he said he's got some things lined up for them to be able to do that.
With Dwayne's maturity, how that's a benefit and a good thing to have with Keon, like what made you comfortable despite his age and being on that side of things, only 20 years old right now, like what made you comfortable though that he could take those steps and like be in a place where he's in a position to take on a sizable role?
Yeah, he is young, and I think the maturity of the guys in that room, the maturity of our offense, obviously our quarterback, who he is, we all know he's the face and the leader, and I believe he'll be very excited, or is currently already very excited to have him. So I think everyone's going to pour into him on what's expected, how to be a pro, how you're going to learn this offense. We're counting on you. Like, don't show up out here and not know your plays or how to line up. It'll take him a little time, but I think it's that fine line of staying on him but letting him have his personality. And there's, as we all know, you guys have all been covering this business. Receivers come in a lot of different flavors and personalities, and he brings a tough dog. The ball's in the air. I'm going to get it. This man's trying to press me. I'm going to physically, work my way through him. Some guys are more finesse. I would say Keon is the complete opposite of finesse, but he still has good athletic ability. Like I said earlier, he's not a stiff player. He's a loose basketball athlete, which does help him, the game translate for him at receiver.
You mentioned earlier having some players that you're still excited about. As you reset your board tonight, do you feel tomorrow with 7 picks that you're pretty well positioned where you can be aggressive to maybe make some moves potentially up to get guys that you think could contribute maybe early in their careers?
Yeah, I do. I think we'll have to see him where it's how quickly it kind of clears out. We're down the round a little bit, but I'm not planning to go up right away, but we'll see how it falls. If it's looking like, man, we're going to have some options, we may sit there. If it's kind of like what was happening, in the second round, then I would definitely use some of those 5s to go up and get. There are some players that, not necessarily expecting them to come in and start, but they can fill some roles, whether it's backups or special teams.
Where your team's at and just what you want to accomplish this offseason, freeing up salary cap space and not without mortgaging the future on draft picks. What have you learned about yourself and this team right now in the phase that it's in knowing that you didn't want to get up to resisted the urge to get into the top 10 to get one of those guys, and actually what did you discover about yourself and actually the benefits of moving back in that sense?
Yeah, John. You're always trying to learn and do things the best you can, and every decision that I've always made is to try to, what's best for the Buffalo Bills, not what's best for me or this coach or this player. It's, it's when you're talking about trading up there, I would just, like I said earlier at one point, like I would have to know, man, that it's dangerous to say you're one player away. You know what I mean? And if you're going up for a quarterback or things like that, some elite pass rusher, I totally get it. It's just really hard from as far back as we were to go into the top 10 where, a couple of those top receivers were. And what you're going to have to mortgage, I've never found that to make complete sense. I haven't seen where, and there may be, I haven't studied this every single move, but I haven't seen where doing that means you're going to get over the top. Like I've seen it when you need to go get your franchise quarterback, or if you listen, if you haven't been able to protect him and you need a tackle, like 100% could see you doing that. I just feel like the way our offense is set up, the pieces we already have, let's just add to it and make sure we have the depth in other places, because we all know you have some years where you get injured, and if you don't have viable pieces ready to come in, and it doesn't matter what you did, if you can't block and run the ball and do all those things, you can have Jerry Rice and all the great receivers out there. If Josh is running for his life, it won't matter. Thank you. Okay, see you guys tomorrow.
That was Bills general manager Brandon Beane wrapping up night 2 of the NFL draft. Quite a bit to chew on in that press conference. A couple of the highlights for me, Chris, is Brandon Beane saying, we knew there was a need that needed to be addressed at wide receiver, and we wanted that need to meet the value that they had on their board. That's why they trade out of the first round into the second round, and there's some wide receivers for them available to go get. They get Keon Coleman. Seems like the scouting department loved Cole Bishop and were willing to move up to go get him. Speaking of the intangibles that you look for in a safety, and they believe DeWayne Carter can be a plug-and-play type of player. It seems like these three guys, they walk away from night 2 being very happy with who's on their team.
Yeah, it sounded as though the scouting department was unanimous on Cole Bishop in terms of what they saw. The reason you have several different scouts go look at a player is to get a second opinion or a third opinion. And oftentimes there are some differing opinions, and then you have the debates in the room. Brandon Beane basically said there was no debate about Cole Bishop. Everybody felt the same way. They all thought he was great and could be, a difference maker, maybe not right away, but future difference maker for this football team. And then with DeWayne Carter, the comment that struck me, and we talked about it right before we tossed to Brandon Beane, how intelligent this player is. I mean, not only is he a 3-year starter, a lot of games under his belt, played a bunch of different positions across the defensive front for Duke, but then on top of that, he said he's a plug-and-play player. Like, they are not worried about him picking up this defense at all. And then on top of that, he said he's the kind of guy with the level of intelligence where they could give him the freedom to call pass rush games on the field in third down situations. The last defensive tackle that had the freedom to do that was a guy named Kyle Williams. So I was like, you could have knocked me over with a feather when Brandon Beane said that. This guy hasn't even gotten to Buffalo yet, and he's talking about him in the same way that Kyle Williams played here. That's a lot. That's a mouthful. So I was blown away by that comment that Brandon Beane threw out there. And then the last thing that Brandon Beane said was there are players still on the board that he believes could fill roles for this football team. And if the board falls tomorrow, like the second round kind of fell tonight, he's going to use his draft capital to get up there and get somebody.
Well, let's speak about that draft capital right now before we end things for the night. The Bills have 7 picks left, 1 in the 4th round, 4 in the 5th round, a 6th round, and a 7th rounder. So, Chris, as we look at the draft capital available, let's talk about some of the best players available right now. Who do you think is worth going after? Who do you think might fall to the Bills in the 4th round?
Yeah, I mean, we mentioned it earlier tonight when we were on previously after the Cole Bishop pick, and we said, look, they could look for some defensive depth up front. Linebacker is still a depth need to fill, but they still need a field stretcher in the receiving game. In their passing game, I mean, Curtis Samuel is a speedster. He runs a 4.31. So does Andy Isabella. But those guys, their careers have largely been on underneath and intermediate routes. Not to say you couldn't have them change their spots and say, go run a go route for me. But I think they still need a field stretcher here. So Troy Franklin and Tez Walker are 2 receivers still on the board who would fit that bill. Franklin runs a 4.41. Walker runs a 4.36. So those are 2 options for them. Jamari Thrash is an interesting player who's still on the board at receiver that I liked out of Louisville. A little bit smaller, only about 188, 190 pounds, but runs good routes and can contribute, I think, as a rookie. So those are probably the 3 receivers I would look at, and I think they're going to come off the board fast. There were some teams trying to climb into the bottom of round 3 here at the end of the night and try to get up, presumably to get some of that receiver value that still exists. It's one of the deepest positions in this class. Beyond that, though, I think we're probably looking late day 3 for a 3rd running back, maybe 6th round, maybe with one of those 5th round picks. But in the 4th round, I think you're trying to get that 2nd receiver, maybe a corner, Although a lot of that corner value that looked great at the beginning of night 2 flew off the
so
board
much
in a
there.
hurry. So they're really going to have to mine, I think, for some cornerback depth on day 3.
Well, we will see what happens on day 3 of the NFL draft. It begins at 12 o'clock Eastern. You can tune in to rounds 4 through 7 of the NFL draft tomorrow. Begins 12 o'clock, like I said, on NFL Network, ESPN, and ABC. Chris, any final observations before we wrap it up here tonight?
Well, I know after night 1, people were losing their minds because the Bills did not take a player off the board. But what did we say? Just trust the process. I think Brandon Beane has a long enough track record where you give him the benefit of the doubt. And I think for all intents and purposes, he came through for you tonight. He got the number 1 need addressed with an ex-receiver that can line up outside and fill that role. He's going to learn on the job, but he's got some elite physical traits to step in and play for you. And then you address the depth at safety, which was needed, and you address the depth at defensive tackle that was needed. So now you're just trying to fill roles, and you heard Brandon say it, not starter roles. So it was a big night, too, for the Bills in terms of addressing some positional needs. So hopefully everybody's breathing a little bit easier tonight.
Being said, guys that are left out there are depth pieces, backups, and special teamers. You address that need in the beginning of night 2 with Keon Coleman, that wide receiver need. You get a big-bodied wide receiver who is a contested catch guy and who can win with the way he plays football. An exciting night 2. We're excited for tomorrow. Begins at 12 o'clock. We want to thank you for tuning in to our instant draft reaction. Tomorrow, another fun day, the final day of the NFL draft. Make sure you keep it locked on BuffaloBills.com for all your day 3 draft needs. For Chris Brown, I'm Maddy Glab. Hope you guys have a wonderful rest of your evening, or shall I say morning. We'll see you next time.